Gentlemen, what is going on today? My name is Ryan Mickler. I'm your host and the founder of the Order of Man podcast and movement. Welcome here today. If you are new, let me tell you, this is a movement to reclaim and restore masculinity. And we do that primarily through this podcast. We interview incredible men, guys like Jocko Willing, Grant Cardone, Andy Frisella, Tim Kennedy, Tim Tebow, Terry Crews, Matthew McConaughey, Ben Shapiro. It's a broad spectrum of men that we interview. We have conversations with, and I try to extract their information, their knowledge, their wisdom, and impart that upon you and I so that we can implement it in our own lives. So glad you're here. We've been going for 8.5 years strong now, coming up on 9 years. And of course, we're rolling into 2024, which I'm excited about. And I wanted to talk with you today about this concept of procrastination. So many men, including myself at times, procrastinate. We put things off and we kick the can down the road when we ought to be engaged in the fight, whatever that fight looks like. If it's to get healthier, if it's to complete that work assignment, maybe it's to start a business or to re-engage with your wife or kids. We have a tendency of procrastinating the things that are challenging, the things that are difficult, and frankly, the things that are uncomfortable. And that's, I think, really what it comes down to. So I'm going to talk with you about 5 key strategies that you can employ in your life to reduce, eliminate, and eradicate procrastination so that you can get your shit done. And that's ultimately what we need to do as men: get the job done, get the work done, and of course, reap the benefits of that for ourselves and for the people that we care about. Now, before I get into that, I do want to tell you, and many of you have been procrastinating on something else, and that's joining our exclusive brotherhood, the Iron Council. This is a band of brothers. We've got over 1,100, almost 1,200, I believe, members now at this point, all working together. We're going through monthly assignments. We're challenging each other. We're doing a nutrition challenge this month, in fact, and we're holding each other accountable. And the camaraderie, of course, that comes with other men who are motivated, ambitious. They want to succeed. They want you to succeed. And many of you have been procrastinating and sitting on the fence in joining us. I can't think of a better time to join us than the end of the year as we roll into 2024, because many of you are thinking about goal planning, goal setting, achieving big things, making 2024 your year. I want that for you. And in order to have that, you're going to have to do something different in your life. The Iron Council might be that difference. We are open as of today, the release of this podcast, December 15th, but we're only open for a very short window because we want to make sure that anybody who does join us over the next 2 weeks has the opportunity to get onboarded and ramped up and up to speed very quickly and very efficiently inside the Iron Council. So we dedicate a lot of time to the new men who join us. So if you're interested, check out at orderofman.com/Iron Council, orderofman.com/Iron Council. You'll watch a very short video, and then you can go to the frequently asked questions and figure out what all we do, and you can get signed up and registered with us. orderofman.com/Iron Council. All right, guys, let's talk about procrastination. I don't need to beat a dead horse. You all know you procrastinate, as do I. We all know when we're doing it, even subconsciously. You know, we make up little justifications and rationalizations, and we excuse our behavior away. But ultimately, at the end of the day, we know when we're putting things off. Maybe you're experiencing the negative ramifications of your procrastination. Maybe it's just a gut feeling. Maybe there's this sense of overwhelm because things are piling up on your plate that you haven't addressed effectively. So we all know we need to stop procrastinating. You want to get healthy, you want to get strong, you want to get fit, you want to build that business, you want to grow your bank account, you want to pay off that debt, you want to connect with your wife, you want to connect with your kids. It all comes down to doing it now. So I'm going to share with you 5 key strategies. Number 1, and these are in no particular order, but number 1 is you must link the effort to the result. Link the effort to the result. Everybody daydreams. I do. I think about relationships, or I think about business, or I think about any number of goals and objectives that I have in my life, desires even. And I daydream about what those things are. Nobody has a problem daydreaming about their goals. What they have a problem with is actively working towards those goals, because that's when, of course, the rubber meets the road, and that's where it becomes challenging. It's easy to sit back and rest and daydream about all the wonderful things that you want in your life. It's infinitely harder to actually go out and do the work required to achieve the result that you desire. But if you want to have what you say you want to have, then you've got to do the work. And that means that there's going to be days that are monotonous and mundane. and boring and maybe even painful to a degree. I know I just got back from a hunt last week and I came back to over 200 emails that I had to address and go through. You think I wanted to go through those? No, of course not. But I hammer through them because I link the correspondence with the guys who reach out or the podcast approvals or acceptance or denial or whatever it might be to the result that I hope to achieve. And so I know that it's part of the process. I'm having an international 76 international scout restored. And I think about the chain of events that needs to happen for an engine to turn over and that truck to fire up. If you're missing one of those crucial elements, even though it might seem boring or mundane or monotonous or unimportant, the truck's not going to fire. The same is true for you in your life. If you're missing one key component, then your goal is not going to fire the way that you want it to fire. If you want to reconnect with your wife, but you're not taking her out on dates weekly and showing her that you love her and care about her and she's important to you, then that relationship is not going to fire up. If you're trying to grow a business and you're really great once you get in front of a potential customer, but you're really poor on reaching out to potential customers, then the business is never going to fire up. So what I would suggest to you when it comes to linking the effort to the result is look at the end result and then reverse engineer the process and ask yourself what things need to be done. Now, you don't need to do all of them, by the way. Maybe initially as you're starting a business, for example, but there are certain things that you can delegate and you should. Key example, I don't like editing my podcast, so I don't edit the podcast. Still needs to get done, but I can outsource and delegate that to Chad, who does a wonderful job on making sure that we are getting the episodes out on time and that they're edited and the sound quality is where it needs to be. And this is a product that I'm proud to present to you guys. So I know everything that needs to get done and I do what I can do and then I delegate the rest. But I know that even the most mundane, posting on social media, getting the podcast edited, reaching out to potential guests, all of that is part of the game. And even when I don't like doing something, I look at the end result. If I go to the gym, I did abs this morning. There's certain movements I don't like. I don't like doing ab wheels, but I do them because I'd like to have a six pack and I'd like to lose weight and I'd like to get strong and I'd like to look good and I'd like to feel good. So it's not about, I don't like doing this. It's about this is what's required to achieve the objective. All right. Number 2 is building or identifying the lowest common denominator. So obviously this is a math term, but we're talking about building momentum. Sometimes when you're starting a new venture, a new dream, a new goal, a new desire, a new objective, it seems so daunting and overwhelming because we've never done it before. And I know we've never done it before because if we've done it, then we would already have it. So if you're trying to get fit, you're trying to rekindle a relationship, you're trying to start a business, you're trying to get a promotion, those are new things to you. Because if they weren't new, if they were old things to you, you would already have the achieved desire or objective. And because they're new, sometimes it's very, very overwhelming. It could be emotionally stressful, mentally stressful, physically stressful. And so what do? We avoid, right? That's going to be painful. I'm not doing that. You wake up at 6 a.m. this morning and you think, oh, I really want to go to the gym, but I got to get up and it's cold and I got to get my pre-workout ready and I got to get dressed and I got to go to the gym and I got to figure out my programming and I got to drive there. And it seems a lot of the times overwhelming. If in your relationship, you and your wife have really been struggling for potentially years, and there's a lot of contention and animosity, maybe even hostility, but there's still some love or a spark somewhere deep down inside of there. It's hard to imagine you going from where you currently are to where you were or where you would like to be. And so it's overwhelming. Anything I do is futile. Anything I work on is not going to move the needle. Guys, sometimes the overcoming the concept of procrastination is just reducing your work to the lowest common denominator. When I was in the financial planning business, I started to get very serious about how I could turn potential clients into actual paying clients. And I started to reverse engineer the process like I'm telling you about now. And I had goals and quotas and things like that I wanted to meet. And so I worked backwards from what I wanted to sell on a daily or monthly basis. And then I worked backwards to, okay, if I want to sell this amount of investments or product or whatever it might be, then I need to close this many clients. And if I want to close this many clients, then that means I need to, based on past experience, meet with this many clients. And if I want to meet with this many clients, then that means I need to get a hold of this many clients. And if I need to get a hold of that many clients, then that means I need to make this amount of phone calls. And if I need to make this amount of phone calls on a monthly basis, here's what I need to do on a daily basis. And ultimately, what it came down to is I needed to make 10 sales calls, new sales calls, not existing, not follow-ups, but 10 new sales calls per day. Lowest common denominator. If I did that, then I knew I would achieve my objective, my goals. That's pretty insane to think about. If all I needed to focus on is not how I close, not how I do this, not the sales strategies, not the techniques, although that is important. But if I could just focus on making 10 calls per day, I knew I would hit my goals. That's the point that we need to get to. Because there were days where I'd be at 6 or 7 and it's bumping up at 5 o'clock. And I'd look at my sheet because I kept track of it. We're going to talk about that in a minute. And I'd see, okay, I've got 7 calls. I can't leave. I've got a half an hour. I can't leave until I get 10. And I'd go through my Rolodex, or I'd go through a cold call list, or I'd make a cold call, or whatever I needed to do to get to 10. There were very few days once I identified that I actually missed that number. So when we're talking about procrastination, guys, don't get so overwhelmed with the end result and reverse engineer back into the lowest common denominator, which for me in my business was 10 sales calls. If you're trying to pay off debt, don't look at the $30,000 vehicle loan. Just look at the monthly payment. In fact, better yet, look at the weekly payment. If your monthly payment is $500, that's $125 a week. Okay, that's manageable. I could do $125 a week. In fact, I could probably do $200, right? And so now you're going to pay $200 a week, the lowest common denominator. And now you're paying $800 instead of $500 a month. And you're going to have that thing paid off in 12 or 15 months earlier. Lowest common denominator. If you want to rekindle the relationship, it's not about, I would just wish we had a great marriage. Well, what are the things that produce a great marriage or a great relationship? Courtship. Really, that's what it is. So it's a phone call. It's a text telling a person that you love them. It's a note in the morning on the mirror, or finding a note in their car, or dropping off lunch to them, or delivering some flowers to their work. Or cooking them dinner, or taking them out. These things are small, simple things to do, but you start building these things up and they add up. And before you know it, the spark that was just a little spark before is now a raging fire, because you broke it down to the lowest common denominator and you did that consistently, habitually, and religiously. And inevitably, you're going to produce the result that you desire. All right, number 3. So I want to talk about one of the a law that a lot of you guys are familiar with, and that is Parkinson's Law. And I just pulled it up here because I want to make sure I get it right. But Parkinson's Law states this: that work expands to fill the time allotted for its completion. Let me say that again. Your work expands to fill the time allotted for its completion. So the point that I wanted to make on this one is that we need to learn to collapse our timeframes and use Parkinson's Law to our advantage. Most of us aren't even aware of what Parkinson's Law is, let alone using it to our advantage, because by default, it's a disadvantage. If I give you 12 months to lose 20 pounds, guess how long it's going to take you? 12 months. If I give you 6 months to lose 20 pounds, guess how long it's going to take you? 6 months, 3 months, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's got to be reasonable. Of course, if I told you by the next day, that won't work. So it's got to be reasonable. But we expand our time frame so far out in advance, and it's unnecessary, and it allows us to procrastinate and drag our feet and not do what's required to achieve the objective. And we just keep pushing it down and down and down and down the road. So what I'd like you to do is take a look at your goals and your desires and objectives and ask yourself, can I do this in half the time? And if I can, what needs to happen in order for me to accomplish that goal? So if you want to run a marathon, can I do this not next year, but can I do it or next fall, but can I do it in the spring? If I want to lose 20 pounds, is it going to take me 12 months or is it going to take me 6 months? What would need to happen in order for me to do it in 6 months? If I want to make this amount of sales in my business and that's going to take me a quarter, can I do it in 30 days? And if I could do it in 30 days, what would I have to do in order to accomplish that? The shorter your time frame, again, within reason, it's got to be a reasonably achievable thing. But if you shorten your time frame, you're going to notice that you get a lot done. Let me give you an example. Years and years ago, when I was in the financial planning practice, I really realized that I wanted to be home with my family more, specifically on the weekends. And I made this decision that on Friday, every Friday, I was going to shave 3 hours off my work week. Instead of wrapping up at 5, I was going to wrap up at 2 and have a 2.5 day weekend rather than just the 2 day weekend. And as I was doing this, I thought, well, man, this is going to cut into my work and my productivity. So I had to take that into consideration. And ultimately, I decided that that was still the best thing to do. The business was running and we were having some success with the growth of the business and the revenue. And so I thought, well, that's something I can sacrifice. I can sacrifice 3 hours a week. And so I made that decision. What was interesting is I found that I didn't sacrifice anything when it came to my business productivity. In fact, Fridays were some of my best, most productive days. Why? Because I worked not from 8 to 5, but I worked from 8 to 2. So I shaved 3 hours off of my day. But because I realized that I had a very short window to accomplish what I wanted to accomplish, I kicked ass. I was faster. I didn't waste so much time. I didn't dink around. There wasn't other things that were distracting me. I was hyper-focused on what needed to get done in a shorter window. And so not only did I get a longer weekend with my family, I was more productive at work, which generated more revenue than I had when I was working longer hours. It's a prime example of Parkinson's Law at work. Guys, you can do this in your life if you're willing to examine your current schedule, your current productivity, and be honest about your productivity or lack thereof, and ask yourself, how can I collapse the time frame? If the project is slated to be done in 90 days, how can you get it done in 60? If you want to get fit in 90 days, how can you do it in 30? And then you can plan accordingly. And like we said a minute ago, reverse engineer the process to figure out what you need to do on a daily basis in order to achieve the objective in a shorter time frame. All right, number 4, I'm a big list guy. I love lists. This has worked really, really well for me. I have a lot of ideas and thoughts and insights and concepts and programs and products and merchandise and things that I want to do. And what I realized years and years ago is that I never got it out of my brain onto paper where it was organized, it was structured, and I can actually go through and check those things off a list. And it became very frustrating and overwhelming for me because it was just bouncing around in this echo chamber of my mind. And I would forget things. I would get so inundated and overwhelmed with the amount of projects or ideas that I had that I wouldn't even start anything because I was so overwhelmed. And so what I started to do is I would leave field note journals out everywhere, on my nightstand, on my desk, in my car, at work, wherever it was, so that if I had an idea, especially at night, because I had this tendency of laying in bed and started thinking about work, and then I couldn't get any sleep. So what I started to do is write these ideas down in the moment. So if it's 10, 11 o'clock at night and I'm lying there in bed trying to go to sleep and I have this idea of a new product that I want to develop for the men that we're working to serve, I'm not going to let it bounce around here. I'm going to actually write it down in that field notes journal. And then what I do in the morning is I compile all of those field notes that I might have from the day or night before into my battle planner. And I can pull this up and I can see that I've got roughly 12 tasks today that need to get accomplished. And I quite literally write them down and I check them off as I accomplish them. In fact, to go even a little deeper, there might be certain things that I can't complete in the moment because they require a little bit more attention, or maybe it's waiting on somebody else to do something. If I've attempted it, I put a slash. If I've attempted it or it's in progress, I put a little slash in front of it. Once it's completed and done, I take that slash and just do another slash and turn it into an X. Once it's an X, I know it's done. So there's three categories my tasks fall into. Number one, incomplete, meaning that there's no slash or there's no X. I haven't even started it yet. So that would be, not even started. Number two is incomplete, meaning I've started it. Maybe I had to coordinate with a person on a podcast. And so I've reached out to that person. That's my slash, but I haven't yet heard back from them. And then what that allows me to do is look back at it tomorrow or the next week and say, okay, well, I reached out to, Steve Smith and I haven't heard back. So what do I need to do? Well, you need to reach back out to him, maybe in a different way. And then once Steve Smith gets back with me and he's like, yeah, let's do a podcast together. We schedule it. It's all booked. I can just go ahead and put an X through it. And that's the third category, which is completed. So you have not started, in progress, completed. And I think that helps eliminate procrastination. I think that will help you know what you need to get done. Having a system, a clear-cut system for your task, for prioritization even, like what's the most important thing on your list, and then a system for actually making sure it gets done. I'm not going to beat a dead horse on that one. I talk about that all the time. If you guys want to look at our battle planner, you can go to store.orderofman.com and click on planners, and you'll see we've got our 12-week battle planner in the brown saddle leather or black as well. And we also have inserts which go inside that are available. So you can get the full planner with a leather cover, or if you already have the leather cover, then you can just get the insert to replace the one that you may have finished last quarter. This is a quarterly planner. So making a list, checking it twice in the spirit of Christmas, and making sure that you're checking things off as you go. All right. The last one, guys, that I want to talk about, point number 5 when it comes to procrastination, is building a carrot and a stick. Building a carrot and a stick. And what I mean by this is that some people are motivated by the carrot, meaning positive reinforcement and positive goals. If I do X, then I will accomplish Y. That's a carrot. The stick is, if I don't accomplish X, then Y will happen. So the carrot is positive reinforcement and engagement. It's moving you forward. The stick is the negativity, the ramifications, the consequence of not doing what you should be doing. So if we're talking about fitness, if I lose 20 pounds, I will look better, I will feel better about myself, and I will live a longer life or have more energy with my kids or fill in the blank with whatever it might be. That's the carrot. So that's propelling you forward. The stick of that version would be, if I don't get in shape and lose 20 pounds and quit drinking or quit smoking or quit whatever it might be, then I will be unhealthy. My kids will have an inferior example of what it means to be a man and how a man shows up for himself and others. And I will continue to feel poorly about myself and my performance. That's a stick. Now, some of you might be saying, oh, that's harsh. Well, then you're a carrot person. And some of you might be saying, well, all that positive stuff, that just seems woo woo. Then maybe you're a stick person. Is one better than the other? No. Is one right or wrong? No. It's whatever works for you. If you need positive reinforcement and encouragement, then do that for yourself. Find people in your life who are going to positively support you that way. If you need the stick, find an accountability partner. Think about the negative ramifications and consequences of your inaction or your poor performance. Whatever serves you is the right thing. And maybe it's a combination of both. Kip talks about this on the podcast, or Ask Me Anything. I tend to be more of a carrot guy. I want to feel good about myself. I look forward to achieving big things in my relationship or with my children or in business with you guys, this movement, in my fitness. I'm forward thinking about that. I like to see the possibilities and know that if I do the work, that I'm going to achieve my ultimate objectives and desires. And that compels me forward. Kip tends to be more of a stick guy. And so you'll hear him on the podcast. He'll talk about it. He'll say, hey, if I don't do this, my kids are not going to get the example they need. If I continue down this path, then I will continue to feel poorly about myself and my performance. And I don't want to feel like that. That's how, it's more how he is motivated versus how I'm motivated. And he's not right. He's not wrong. I'm not right. I'm not wrong. We just know ourselves well enough to know what is going to compel us to move forward. And what is it for you? Are you a carrot guy or are you a stick guy? Spend some time analyzing that, thinking about that. What do you naturally gravitate towards? What propels you forward? What actually fosters movement and growth and forward thinking in your life? And if you can find some commonalities in that, you might realize that you're a stick or a carrot versus a stick. Either is good as long as you know what it is, and then you can implement what you need to in order to achieve your goals and desires. Guys, that's how I found, that's some of the strategies I found to eliminate procrastination. The other thing I would say is now turn this podcast off and turn all the other podcasts off and put down the book and stop watching YouTube videos, instructional YouTube videos. Like, put all that down and go to work. Andy Frisella calls them, I believe, learning zombies. Many of you are. You think that listening to this podcast is doing the work. It's not. You think that going to that conference is doing the work. It's not. You think reading the book is doing the work. It's not. I'm not saying those things are unimportant. I've made a career and a movement and a fulfilling life on providing information that I think will serve all of us as men. So it's important, but it's not the work. We need to actively go out there and do the things I'm telling you about in order to achieve the results. And planning to do the thing, learning about the thing, studying about the thing, talking about the thing is not the thing. The thing is the thing. Go out and do it. All right. So let's review and then go to work. Number one, link the effort to the result. Number two, look for the lowest common denominator, right? And build momentum towards your goal and objective. Number three, Parkinson's Law, collapse your time frame because work is going to expand to the time allotted, shorten the time frame. Number four, make a list and check it off. And number five, build either the carrot or the stick, whatever propels you forward. All right, guys, I hope that serves you. Again, as a reminder, the Iron Council is open and we have both the carrot and the stick. We have accountability, we have structure, we have the battle planning system and tools, which is the lowest common denominator. We're going to help you with all five of these things inside of the Iron Council. And you can check that out at orderofman.com/Iron Council. We are officially open as of the release of this podcast today, December 15th, 2023. I hope to see hundreds of new members in there, all working to get after it in 2024. All right, guys, that's what I've got for you today. We will be back next week for our interview. Until then, go out there, take action, eradicate, eliminate, reduce procrastination, and become the man you are meant to be.